Something is not adding up when we talk about Shedeur Sanders and what ended up unfolding in the process of what was the 2025 NFL draft. He ends up going in the 5th round in day 3 when a number of people were expecting him very confidently to go in the 1st round. So as a sense of media, all of the people that talk about the sport of college football, talking about prospects, talking about the draft, have to ask themselves very hard questions about their evaluations when they had him pegged as a much higher choice. I myself had Shedeur over Cam Ward. You can stop watching this video, but seriously, I saw them both play in person, and there was an evaluation that I made. I had watched Will Howard play in person. I had watched Dillon Gabriel play games in person. Again, like I said, Cam Ward play against a UCLA defense. I'm comparing some of that to what I had seen the previous year when I saw Caleb Williams and Michael Penix Jr. duel out in an absolute friggin' showdown in a 52-42 type of game, and remembering what had happened. So my basis was off of, one simple game, watching Shedeur with a game against USC and Cam throughout a lot of last season, and it struck me as interesting how many times he had to be a hero. I did not have Shedeur that much higher than Cam, but this draft did not make sense in terms of what was being articulated. So it makes you think a little bit more about the media and what they have to say, who their sources specifically are. There are words coming out of the camps that Shedeur Sanders was not at all liked in the draft process, that people thought he had terrible interviews for them. Didn't hear any of that stuff about pretty much any other players. I don't know if he did something with John Gruden, but just know it was pretty fun to watch Will Howard, Quinn Ewers do interviews and do that whole barstool stuff. Got to know those quarterbacks a little bit better throughout that process. It was just a bit of fun to watch. I didn't see Shedeur do something like that. I'm not knocking that. It would have just been fun to see a little bit more of that personality outside of the limelight and actual footage that people take of him on Instagram. But what is interesting is these evaluations that set Shedeur to go to Cleveland in the 5th round. That was before Will Howard, who was a national champion, second highest completion percentage in college football in the 2024 season, I might add, at 73. Shedeur was 74. Dillon Gabriel, tremendous year, the most seasoned, experienced quarterback in college football history heading into a draft, broke Bo Nix's record from a year ago. Riley Leonard, he went to the Colts after Shedeur had been taken. So what was the evaluation? What was the true reason? So Shedeur goes after Cam, after Jackson Dart. What truly was their ultimate reason? And it's not a black ball. It's not because of all these things that were talked about. It's not about race, stuff that hasn't to do with football. They looked at the film and they decided that this was not a guy that they wanted to have even as their backup for their team. Just curious, though, as far as Cleveland, why'd they take Shedeur over Riley Leonard or Will Howard? Was it truly a spot? Like, where did they have him on their big board to let him fall? Because that just didn't make a whole lot of sense to take two quarterbacks in this specific draft, where it was very much well accounted for that this was where you were going to get your value, was picks 2 through 5. That is the meat and potatoes. This is the main event. Day 1 was going to be fun for the first couple of picks, but the real meat, what you were looking for in the draft, was from the second and third day. That's where it was going to be an entertaining watch. So curious as far as what you have to think, because when we compare the experience of other quarterbacks in this draft, and Shedeur winds up going higher than a couple of them, later than Dillon Gabriel, and sets the scene of that quarterback competition. My goodness, is that going to be a whole supernova of excitement and energy that we frankly haven't seen in Cleveland surrounding the quarterback besides like high draft picks as far as just the way a competition goes, because nothing fuels a team like an Oklahoma drill or like two quarterbacks going at it. And don't forget about Kenny Pickett now. Don't forget about Joe Flacco being around that team. But again, Cleveland was able to pick up Quinshon Judkins to that roster, filled in a hole in the middle of that defense with Schlesinger out of UCLA. They're very much the focal point of that wall. Mason Graham going to be with Myles Garrett. So Cleveland starting to come together now. They absolutely are going to need to fill out that wide receiver spot, because if we take a look at the Browns roster as of right now, I mean, that has to be easily the biggest hole that you would find with them. You know, they were able to make do with Mari Cooper, right? They had Jarvis Landry, but you know, the likes of Cedric Tillman was a 4th, 5th rounder. Deontay Johnson had been with Carolina. Looking at the depth chart right now, Jerry Jeudy, okay, that makes a whole lot of sense, but that is the side of the football that needs to have a bit of work. What did people think about Will Howard going to Pittsburgh? That was a curious decision. I think a lot of that centers around what is going to happen with Aaron Rodgers. Is he going to be the starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers here very soon, or at least having Will compete or be put in a backup role to learn from the experienced Aaron? But don't sleep on Will Howard. If you write him off, he's going to like that, because this guy is going to be a competitor and go out there. And Dillon Gabriel, don't write him off either, with all of that experience that he had and taking good completions. But there's no doubt that that's what the center is going to be. It just feel a little bit poor for Riley Leonard, because I don't think he's going to really get a full true evaluation from the staff. You know, they're going to say that it will be, but it just seems from a first glance that Anthony Richardson's going to get the go-ahead no matter any direction that thing plays out. When you invest the capital that Indianapolis did in the quarterback for Anthony Richardson, that he's going to get a full season to be able to run it. But if for some reason Richardson doesn't play, Riley Leonard, again, not having to go far in the state of Indiana, being able to stay there, that will be certainly something to keep an eye on. So thank you so much for watching this video. This was fun to reminisce on, to break down for the NFL draft. Hope you subscribe for more future content. Let me know where you disagree, agree with what I had to say, and catch me next time for another episode of Blitz with Blender.